Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our 11th class of this intermediate English course. Please confirm if you can hear me.
Yes, teacher.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Erika. Okay, guys, so welcome to our 11th class. Let's start right away. So, let me share my screen to show you. For this week, we are going to study. I think that okay. As you know, we have been studying the irregular verbs from this list. And now, if this allows me, oh wow, give me a second. Okay. Okay. So now we're going to continue with verb review number 6, right? Verb review number 6. I don't know why it's taking all this time. Okay. Still charging or loading in this case. American would say it's loading. Okay. So the next 10 verbs that we are going to study are the following. We're going to study the ones that are highlighted in purple. So we have here the verb give, go, grow, grind, hang, have, hear, hide, hit, hold. Okay? So we have give, gave, given, go, went, gone, grow, grew, grown, grind, ground, ground, hang, hung, hung, have, had, hear, heard, heard, hide, hid, hidden, hit, hit, and hold, held, held. Okay? So these are the verbs that we're going to study during this week. Verb review number 6. Okay, so with that being said, let me close this because it's consuming a lot of resources from my computer. Okay, so now let's begin right away. But before we begin with our unit number 6, let's read this quote. Okay, we have this quote from Benjamin Franklin. Tell me and I forget, teach me and I remember, involve me and I learn. Benjamin Franklin. Read it and let me know, what do you think about this? Tell me, Jose.
Well, teacher, for me, when you tell me something, I forget. If you teach me, I remember. So if I practice English every day and you teach me, I remember something. But if I involve in all the English class, I think I learn English.
Okay. That was good. Tell me, Jerica, what do you think?
I think when the best way you learn for name about something is practicing is involved about the about whatever you want to learn. Because when you only heard about something, you easily forgot that. But when you
It's okay. Take your time.
Look. Okay, when you wrap in something, I don't know if it's right.
When you get involved,
Involved, yeah, yeah, good. When you get involved something, you can learn more easily.
okay, easier. Yes, yes, that's true. It's easier to learn. Pablo, tell me, Pablo. Thank you, Yediga.
Oh, sorry. Told and I forget. Teach me and I remember. Involvement and I learn. Told me es como si me lo dice, lo puedo olvidar. Si me lo
Yes,
enseña, lo puedo recordar. Involúcrame y puedo aprender.
yes, that's true. That's right. Yes. Thank you, Pablo. Tell me, Saul.
Teacher, I think we learn better when we participate.
Yes, that's true too, Saul. We learn better when we participate, when we get involved. So let's say that we're explaining a topic like we do every week. We always explain a topic. And if I only explain the topic, you will forget it. But then I explain the topic and I give you examples and you will remember it. But if I explain the topics, give you example, and then I allow you to build your own sentences based on that topic, you will know it. You will learn it because now you not only listen to the explanation and saw the examples, you got involved in the process. You got involved in the process, you participated in the process. So now you know why we build sentences in the way we build it. How do we figure it out? Which words should we place in that sentence? What is the structure of that sentence? Or what are the rules of that sentence? So, or of that tense. So when you get involved, when you participate, which is what we do every time I leave you homework, is a way for you to get involved. So you can participate and create the sentences and solve the exercises. So everything that we just explained in a given class, now you can put into practice. And when you do that, it is easier to remember. And it is easier to know how to put it all together when someone asks you a question because you know how is the process because you were involved in the process. Okay? There will always be a difference from someone who is only presenting a product that from someone who was actually involved in the process of creating that product and he's also presented the product, the ideas, the input that he has from the experience. It's without a doubt, it's more deep, it's more profound that someone that only memorize a document and then went to the presentation to show it to other people. So it is important to get involved in the process, and that is why you have to participate. You have to do the homework. You have to build the sentences. You have to answer the questions because that's the only way you will actually learn it and use that later on when you actually need it. You know. Okay, so let's continue. Okay, so our unit for these evenings is how often do you run? How often do you run? This is the title of this evening's class. Okay, so how often do you run? Discuss sports and exercise habits. Ask and answer questions about frequency of free time activities. So as you know, we discussed the adverb of frequency in the previous book, in the intro book. But This evening, we are going to go deeper in that topic. We are going to see other adverbs of frequency that we should know and other ways that we can use some adverbs of frequency that you might see somewhere else, or maybe you might hear it in a series, TV show, or movie. So here we have the top sports and fitness activities in the United States. Sports, we have football, baseball, soccer, ice hockey, and basketball. We also have fitness activities like treadmill, running, jogging, walking, bowling, weight training. Okay. Here we have our first homework. How often do you run? Complete the chart. Use words from the box. So here we have to divide the sports or these activities into these two categories that we have here. We have sports, which of these is a sport, and fitness activities, which of these is a fitness activity. Okay, that's our first homework, pretty easy. So let's start with our first reading, with our first conversation. I run every day. So who is going to read? Okay, let's start with Berenice and Jose. Berenice is Aaron, and we have here Riley.
Okay, teacher. You have a lot of energy, really? Do you exercise a lot?
Well, I get up early and run on the treadmill for an hour every day.
Seriously?
Sure. And I do weightlifting.
Wow, how often do you lift weights?
I actually do it about 3 times a week. What about you?
Oh, I hardly ever exercise. I usually just watch TV or listening to music in my free time. I guess I am a real couch potato.
Potato. A real couch potato. Okay, so let's continue with Pablo and Jerica. Pablo is Aaron, and Jerica is Riley.
You have a lot of energy, really? Do you exercise a lot?
Well, I get up early and run on the treadmill for an hour every day.
Certainly.
Sure. And I weightlifting.
Wow. How often do you lift weights?
I usually do it about 3 times a week. What about you?
Oh, I hardly ever exercises. I usually just watch TV or listen to music in my free time. I guess I am a real couch potato.
Okay. Let's continue with Sol and Nilcia. Sol, Aaron, Nilcia, Riley.
Okay. You have a lot of energy, Riley. Do you exercise a lot?
Well, I get up early and run on the treadmill for an hour every day.
Seriously?
Sure, and I do lifting.
Wow, how often do you lift weights?
I usually do about 3 times a week. What about you?
Oh, I hardly ever exercise. I usually just watch TV or listen to music in my free time. I guess I'm a real couch potato.
Okay, couch potato, couch.
Couch.
Couch, yes. We have couch and we have coach, right? In this case, it's couch. Okay, so let's read this again. If nobody else is going to read, I run every day. You have a lot of energy, Riley. Do you exercise a lot? Well, I get up early and run on the treadmill for an hour every day. Seriously? Sure. And I do weightlifting. Wow. How often do you lift weights? I usually do it about 3 times a week. What about you? Oh, I hardly ever exercise. I usually just watch TV or listen to music in my free time. I guess I'm a real couch potato. Couch potato. Does someone have any idea what is a couch potato? No? Well, a couch potato means a lazy person. It's a person who spends a lot of time sitting on a couch, watching TV, playing video games, or scrolling, in this case, in their phone. That is a couch potato. I hope that we don't have any couch potatoes here. Okay. Okay, so now let's talk about the adverbs of frequency. So as you can see this right here, the adverbs of frequency is a known topic. We studied this in the intro book. Remember always, usually, often, sometimes, hardly ever, and never. So the new adverbs of frequency from this list are basically almost always and almost never. Okay? Because usually, often, sometimes, and hardly ever were in our previous list. So in this new list, these are the only two new ones. Okay, so here we have, well, we have a graphic representation of the adverbs of frequency. And here we have examples. I always exercise in the case of always, which represents a 100% frequency. Almost always is nearly 100%, but not exactly 100. Okay, almost always is casi siempre. I almost always exercise. And then we have usually, most of the time, I usually exercise. Many times, in the case of often, I often exercise. We have sometimes, which means occasionally. I sometimes exercise. Hardly ever, which means almost never. I hardly ever exercise. And we have also almost never, very rarely. I almost never exercise. And the last one is I never exercise. So we know that always represents 100% and never represents 0%. So we have always that represents a 100% in the frequency that this activity is being performed by that person, and never represents a 0% of frequency. So that person never engages in that specific activity, never participates in that activity. He never does that activity. So that is in the case of never. So 100% in the case of always, 0% in the case of never. Okay, so in between we have all the others adverbs of frequency. Okay, so expressions of frequency provide exact numerical precision. We have some expressions of frequency, like, for example, instead of using usually, we can say every day, once a week, twice a month, 3 times a year. Okay, these are expressions of frequency. So, for example, If I do something one time, we use once a week, which means what time every week. But we never say in English one time every week, okay? Once a week means one time every week, but we don't use one time or this sentence to express that. This is only the meaning. The correct form, the correct structure is to use once. If you do something only once a week, one time a week, you say, I go to the gym once a week. So that means that every 7 days you go one day. Okay? Or every week you only go one day, to be more precise. The same thing happens with two times. When we do something two times, again, let's use the example of a week, two times a week. We don't say, I go to the gym two times a week. No, we say twice a week. So we have once for one time, and we have twice for two times. When we have three or more, in that case, or in those cases, we can use 3, 4, 5 times a week, or a month, or a year. So we only have a specific word for one time, once, two times, twice, three or more, we use the number 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times a week, or 3, 4, 5 times a month, or 3, 4, 5 times a year. You see, we only have once and twice for one time and two times. After that, we use 3 and the times that we do the activity in a certain period of time. Is that clear? Is that clear? Okay. Pretty easy, huh? Okay, so here we have frequency adverbs sit firmly between the subject and the action. So I don't know if you recall, but in the intro book, when we explained this, I told you that we use the adverb of frequency normally, or the frequency adverb normally, between the subject and the verb. Okay, so here we have an example. We have the subject, the adverb of frequency, and then we have the exercise. So this is the normal structure. Okay, I always, she usually, they often, he never. So after the pronoun, I have to use the adverb of frequency. This applies for all the verbs except the verb to be. Okay, this applies for all the verbs except the verb to be. In the case of the verb to be, we need to remember that the adverb of frequency goes after the verb to be. So instead of going before the verb, it goes after the verb. So as you can see right here, we have the subject, the verb to be, and then we have the adverb of frequency. So I am always, she is usually, they are often. See the difference? I always exercise. The adverb of frequency is before the verb. She usually studies. The adverb of frequency is before the verb. They often play. The adverb of frequency is before the verb. He never watches. The adverb of frequency is before the verb. Okay? But in the case of the verb to be, the adverb of frequency goes after. I am always tired. She is usually late. They are often busy. We can see it right here, the system of comparison. I usually exercise, or I am usually tired. The exception is the verb to be. So every time you see the verb to be, you need to remember that you're going to put the adverb of frequency after the verb to be. For all the other verbs, it goes before. Okay? It goes before. Okay, so we have now, and now you are growing up to understand this. Okay, let's imagine that you're no longer kids in English, you're teenagers. So you're old enough to understand this as a grown up, right? So here we have that in the case of usually and sometimes, for these two adverbs of frequency, we can apply an exception, or there is an exception. And the exception is that usually and sometimes are two adverbs of frequency that can be at the beginning of a sentence. Okay? Usually, I exercise before class, or sometimes I watch TV before bed. So as you can see, sorry about that. I, there's no way to control that. Okay, so in the case of the adverb of frequency, as you can see, is at the beginning. Usually I exercise before class. So as I told you before, we normally place the adverb of frequency before the verb. So in that sense, we would have to place it here. I usually exercise before the class. But in the case of usually, we can place it right here. I usually exercise, or we can have it at the beginning of a sentence, followed by a comma. Usually, I exercise before class. Sometimes I watch TV before bed. Because this is an exception, this does not apply to all the adverbs of frequency. Okay? This only applies to usually and sometimes. So what about always? It does not apply. What about often? It does not apply. Okay? Some books add hardly ever at the beginning of a sentence, or rarely, I think. But in the majority of the cases, it's only usually and sometimes that we can place at the beginning of a sentence. That does not mean that this is the only use of these adverbs of frequency. No, this is an exception, okay? It can be at the beginning, it can be in the middle right here, okay? So here we have another example. Sometimes I watch TV before bed, and you can see right here another way of saying the same thing. I sometimes watch TV before bed. Both sentences are correct. Okay? The placing here does not alter the meaning of the sentence. Is that clear?
Yes, teacher.
Okay. Okay, so now let's talk about homework. Here we have our second homework. Arrange these words to make sentences or questions. Here we have to arrange these words. Some of them are questions. We can see it right here because of the question mark that we can see at the end. And some of them are sentences. It doesn't matter. We have a strict rule, right, on how to use or how to place these adverbs of frequency, either if it's a question or a sentence. So this is our second exercise. Then we have this third exercise. Here we have in parentheses adverbs or expressions of frequency that we have to place in their correct places. We have to put them in their correct places. For example, do you play sports? Ever is an adverb of frequency, so I need to find a place where to put it. Where would that be? Well, if I follow the rule and I have the verb play, ever goes before play. So the question would be, do you ever play sports? Easy peasy. Then we have these questions right here. Here says, use these questions to complete the conversations. How often do you? Do you ever? And what do you usually? we have to identify where goes how often, where goes do you ever, and where goes what do you usually. Remember that we have different uses for these questions. So you have to look carefully at each answer to identify which structure fits best in each case. Then we have this other exercise. Complete this conversation with the correct prepositions. Write them in the correct places. Here we have three options, prepositions, and we have to identify in the sentence where that preposition go. Okay? Or in this case, goes, right? Where that preposition goes. We have three options. Only one is the correct option, and you have to identify where you're going to place that preposition. Okay, so now it's your time to speak. You're in great shape. Who is going to begin with this conversation? Jose is pretty active. Okay, Jose Angelica. So Jose is going to read Meg, Angelica, Steph.
You're in great shape, Mick.
Thanks. I guess I'm a real fitness freak.
How often do you work out?
Well, I'm going swimming and lift weights every day. And I play tennis three times a week.
Tennis? That sounds like a lot of fun.
Oh, do you want to play something?
How well do you play?
Pretty well, I guess.
Well, all right, but I'm not very good.
No problem. I would give you a few tips.
Okay, I'll give you a few tips. Okay, let's continue. We have Pablo. Who else is going to read? Okay, we have Pablo and Nilcia. Pablo, Meg, and Nilcia, Steph.
I'm Steve. I'm Steve.
You're Meg. Nilcia is Steph.
Okay, good.
You're great, Chef Mike. Mick.
Thanks. I guess I am a really fitness break.
How often do you work out?
Well, I go swimming, lift weights every day, and I play tennis three times a week.
Tennis? That sounds like a lot of fun.
Oh, do you want to play sometime?
How well do you play?
Pretty well, I guess.
Well, all right, but I'm not very good.
No problem. I'll give you a few tips.
Okay, muy bien. I'll give you a few tips. This is fitness freak. Fitness freak. Okay. Berenice and Sol. Berenice, Steph, y Sol, Meg.
Yes, teacher, you're in great shape, Mick. Mike?
10. I guess I'm a really fitness freak.
How often do you work out?
Well, I go swimming and lift weights every day. And I play tennis 3 times a week.
Tennis? That sounds like a lot of fun.
Oh, do you want to play sometime?
How well do you play?
Pretty well, I guess.
Well, all right. But I'm not very good.
No problem. Give us a tip.
Okay. Okay. Let's continue with Angelina. Sorry, guys. Every time you hear that sound is because I have an app that sends me an alert every time we have an earthquake nearby the island. You know how it is nowadays. We're paying attention to that, to the movement of the earth, all these earthquakes that we have, like every month, and we know that we live in a seismic area, pretty dangerous area too. Okay, so Angelina, who else is going to read? Who wants to read with Angelina?
Can I teach you?
Okay, thank you, Berenice. So Angelina is going to read Steph's part and Berenice mix part.
You are in grade. Take me. Thanks. I guess I am a real fitness freak. How often do you work out? Well, I go swimming and lift weights every day, and I play tennis 3 times a week. Tennis? That sounds like I love of fun. Oh, do you want to play sometimes? Oh, how well do you play? Pretty well, I guess. Well, and it's but I am not very good. No problem. I will give you a few tips.
Okay. Okay, so let's read this again. You're in great shape, Mick. Shape. Thanks. I guess I'm a real fitness freak. How often do you work out? Well, I go swimming and lift weights every day, and I play tennis 3 times a week. Tennis? That sounds like a lot of fun. Oh, do you want to play sometime? Oh, how well do you play? Pretty well, I guess. Well, alright, but I'm not very good. No problem, I'll give you a few tips. I don't know if you noticed, but this word right here is different from sometimes. I think I told you a long time ago, about this word, sometime. So we have sometimes with an S, and that is an adverb of frequency. But sometime is not an adverb of frequency. It means en algún momento. Okay? So it's not about frequency, it's about a future time. Okay? En algún momento or an indefinite time in the future. Maybe. But it's not an adverb of frequency. So it's not about how frequently you do an activity. It's about when an activity is going to take place without being precise en algún momento. Okay, so don't forget about that. Okay, so now let's talk about these 4 questions, which are pretty easy to understand. We have how often, how long, how well, and how good. As you can see, all of these questions start with how, right? But are followed by a different word. And that word changes the meaning of or the purpose of the question. So how often is about frequency. How long is about duration. How well is about performance. And how good is about ability. Let's see them one by one. Here we have how often, which is equal to frequency. Tell me, Jerica.
No, teacher, te lo voy a explicar. Iba a explicar, iba a preguntar la diferencia entre how well and how good.
Okay.
So ya se va.
Okay, so how often is equal to frequency? We want to know how many times. When we ask with how often is because we want to ask about how many times. How often do the subject verb? How often do you work out? How often does she go to the gym? We want to know how many times. The answer could be every day, twice a week, not very often. Okay, we will have many options. Okay, because it will depend on the frequency that that person has. Then we have how long, which is equal to duration. And we ask how long to ask how much time. How long, the structure, how long plus do does plus subject plus verb. How long do you spend at the gym? How much time? Maybe 30 minutes a day, 30 minutes a day again, 2 hours a week, about an hour on weekends. The answer will depend on the duration, on the time you invest in that certain activity that you are being asked about. Then we have how well and how good. And this is tricky to explain because it's pretty similar in Spanish. Not to say that it's exactly the same because sometimes it sounds the same to us. Okay, so we have how well. How well. How well is to ask about skill and performance. How successfully do you do something? How well do you play tennis? How well do you speak English? Pretty well, about average, not very well. This is how successfully do you do something. And then we have how good, which is more about the ability. We want to know what is your level of ability. In this case, requires be plus at. How good are you at something? How good is she at, in this case, cooking? Or how good are you at sports? In this case, we have to use the verb to be right and we have to use at. Because when we ask how good is someone in English, we always use the preposition at. How good are you at sports? How good is she at cooking? How good is he at singing? At. The answer is, well, maybe pretty good or okay, not so good. So how well and how good are similar, but how well is more about the performance and how good is about the ability. Okay? Let's continue. So, how often is about frequency. How long is about duration. How well is about performance. And how good is about ability. Tell me, Jose.
Teacher, I'm really confused because how well and how good. How
Okay, maybe in Spanish
not the same.
It's not exactly the same. There is a little difference. For example, in Spanish, how well podría ser qué tan bien. Okay, the performance. Mientras que how good sería qué tan bueno. Entonces, qué tan bien juegas es diferente a qué tan bueno eres. Están relacionadas, ¿verdad? Las preguntas, pero tienen enfoques distintos. Oye, ¿qué tan bueno eres jugando? ¿O qué tan bien se te da? Entonces, cuando preguntamos how well, estamos preguntando por el performance, el desempeño. Oye, ¿qué tan bien se te da el básquetbol? Y lo otro sería qué tan bueno eres jugando básquetbol. At the end, la diferencia está en la forma en la que se pregunta y el enfoque de la pregunta, aunque está muy vinculado, ¿verdad? Está muy vinculado una con otra. Y nosotros podríamos elegir o una u otra dependiendo del contexto o de lo que queramos saber en ese momento. Pero se parecen bastante. Sí, y están relacionadas. Ok, entonces, let's see. Let's continue. There's a sound. Okay. Okay, so with that being said, here we have a summary. How often, number of times, long, how long, the amount of time, how well, how successfully, and how good is your level of ability. Okay, so with that being said, here we have more exercises. Complete the sentences, use the words from the box. So we have to use the words from the box to fill up the blank spaces. We have to identify where these words fit best in this exercise. Then we have this exercise, which is choose the correct responses. We have 3 options, and we have to choose the correct one. Pretty simple too. Then we have this one. Look at the answers. Write questions using how. Here we have answers, right? We have to think which how fits best. Is it how good? Is it how well? Is it how long? Is it how often? When I read the answer, I will know exactly which one is. And then we have this one. Rewrite these sentences. Find another way to say each sentence using the words given. Using the words that we have right here, these adverbs, we have to rewrite the sentence. So, for example, I don't go bike riding very often. Now I have to say the same thing using hardly ever. So, in that case, it would be, I hardly ever go bike riding. At the end, I have the same idea with different words. And last but not least, we have this exercise right here. What do you think about fitness and sports? Answer these questions. So these are questions to know your opinion. For example, do you like to exercise for a short time or a long time? Do you prefer exercising in the morning or in the evening? Which do you like better, walking or jogging? Which do you like better, team sports or individual sports? How good are you at sports like basketball and tennis? What is a sport or game you don't like? So all of these questions are going to be answered with your own information from your own perspective. You're going to share with us your thoughts, your opinion, your take on this. Okay, and that will be all. So I will send you now the pictures of the exercises so you can start working on them right away. And next Thursday, God willing, we will see each other again and we will review all of these exercises. Okay? Do you have any questions? If you don't,
teacher.
okay, if you don't have any questions, that will be all for tonight. Take care, guys. Be safe and see you again next Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Goodbye. Good night.
Good night, teacher.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you, teacher. Have a good night.
Same to you, Jerica.